Ken is an ordinary boy who is accidentally summoned to another world as a weak healer. However, when a powerful and busty mommy puts him through harsh training, he becomes overpowered and claps the demon lord. It all starts when Ken is heading home from school, noting how mediocre his life is. But it starts to rain, and he's forced to take shelter in the locker room. Just then, the school's most popular duo, Suzune and Kazuki, notice that Ken doesn't have an umbrella, so they give him an extra and offer to walk home with him. On the way, Ken is in awe of how nicely they're treating a loser like him despite being the popular ones in their school. Just then, Suzune and Kazuki suddenly stop when they hear some bells. But Ken thinks they are Delulu because he can't hear anything. Seconds later, a magic circle appears under their feet, and they get teleported in front of a king named Lloyd, who reveals that they've been summoned to serve as heroes to fight against the demon lord's army. Hearing this, Suzune gets thrilled, while Kazuki demands that he be sent back to his original world so he can delete his browser history.
You naughty, naughty.
When Lloyd tells him the summoning ritual works one way, Kazuki gets pissed, only for the king to kneel to them and promise to find a way to send them back. He also begs them to help them in the meantime, but Kazuki reminds him that they're just ordinary students. That's when Lloyd's court mage explains that the summoning magic targets those with main character aura, as only those with exceptional abilities can hear the summoning bells. Hearing this, Ken reveals that he didn't hear any bells, and it finally hits him that he got summoned by accident.
The game is broken!
Later, the court mage asks the heroes to test their magical affinity using a crystal ball, and Suzune excitedly goes first. As the ball glows yellow, the court mage tells her she's got the power of Zeus inside her, causing her to grin. Kazuki also touches the ball, and it starts to glow white. So the court mage tells him he possesses light magic, which demons are scared of, just like you stinky losers are scared of bathing. Lastly, Ken places his hand, and the ball glows green, but when he looks at the court mage for answers, she grabs Ken's hand and runs to the throne room in panic. When she tells Lloyd what happened, he anxiously tells Ken that he must leave this kingdom for his own good. But Ken gets confused because everything is happening too fast for his pea brain. Just then, a busty green-haired mommy named Rose smashes open the door, and Elden Ring boss music starts playing in the background. She casually walks into the room and asks Lloyd about the heroes, but Lloyd is too terrified to formulate words. The court mage speaks on his behalf, telling Rose that the heroes are waiting in the other room, which prompts her to leave. However, Ken is confused and asks the king what it means when the ball glows green, which makes everyone in the room freak out all over again. Rose hears this and returns to take Ken, but Lloyd quickly orders the court mage to move Ken to safety. She immediately locks him in a bubble and sends him away, but Rose dashes after him and manages to grab him. She then tells the king that she'll train the boy to become a proper Giga Chad and takes him away, and not a single soul dares to stop her. Later, the court mage tells Suzune and Kazuki that Ken has an affinity for healing magic, which is rarer than pink sheep in Minecraft. Rose herself is one of those rare healers, and she's taken Ken away to train him as her subordinate. But the problem is that she's way too harsh. That night, Rose tells Ken that she's recruiting him to her rescue team before introducing him to her band of slaves. The boys immediately start scaring Ken, but she tells them to be nice and tells Ken to prepare for training tomorrow. With no other choice, Ken accepts this and heads to bed, not knowing that Rose is gonna pound him without a safe word. The next day, Suzune and Kazuki visit Rose's house to check up on Ken, and he tells them he's exactly where he wants to be. The duo is relieved to hear that, and Suzune wishes him good luck, adding that she's starting her training today. Ken tells her she's bussin' in her outfit, and after Kazuki thanks Ken for giving him the motivation, they head back to the royal palace. After they leave, Rose shows up and Ken starts to tremble in fear because of Rose's terrifying presence. She hands him a journal and tells him to write his daily training regimen in it, down to what he feels about it. Later, he joins Rose at the training ground, and she asks him to feel a warmth around his heart. She adds that it's his mana, and he must channel it to use his magic. But he's far from that right now. Afterward, she tells him to read a book, but Ken tells him he can't understand this world's language. However, when he opens the book, he realizes that he can actually read, and Rose explains that all heroes come with a pre-built auto-translator. She then shows him the boundary between the Linger Kingdom and the Demon Territory, adding that he must read this book to learn more about this world. The next day, she makes Ken run for miles, and after that, she makes him run on an incline to build his chicken legs. However, Ken gets tired and falls over, prompting Rose to step on his toe for slacking off. As he wheezes in pain, he suddenly realizes that all the soreness is gone, and Rose explains she used healing magic to fix him up. She then tells him to get his filthy bum moving, and Ken starts running again for the next few days, making slow progress with each run. On a rainy day, he falls flat on his face and somehow becomes even filthier, but Rose coldly tells him to stop slacking. This pisses Ken off, but then he sees his hand glowing and realizes the training is actually working. The following day, Rose leaves her footprints on Ken's cakes, stating that he's not making enough progress and she's gonna make him train harder from now on. From that point on, Ken keeps getting his cakes thoroughly baked on a daily schedule, forcing him to learn healing magic just to function. A few days later, he uses his magic to make sure he is never tired, and even runs alongside Rose's other students. Despite that, Rose continues to be harsh to him, and he vows to make her eat dirt by getting stronger. The next day, Rose finally gives him a break from running and makes him do push-ups, and he uses healing magic to restore his muscles every time they feel sore. Seeing this, Rose finally tells him that she's training him this way so he can run away from the enemy as quickly as possible. She adds that his job will be to carry his injured allies back to safety, and running faster means he'd save more lives. With this newfound understanding, Ken continues training and even does both running and push-ups on the same day. Just when he gets the hang of it, Rose makes him wear extra weights, which brings him to square one. The next day, one of the other trainees named Tong eats his lunch, and this pisses Ken so much that he runs after him, even with the extra weights on. A week later, Kazuki and Suzune give him a surprise visit, only to find him doing push-ups with a block of concrete plus Rose on his back. When he slows down, Rose starts talking smack, but Ken has had enough and roasts her back. However, Rose punishes him by dropping another block on concrete on his back, but he powers through and performs a push-up. Seeing this, Rose finally acknowledges his worthless existence, telling him that he's been promoted from filthy to trash. At this, Suzune starts drooling over Ken's thick muscles, while Kazuki gets concerned for his well-being. Just then, Knight Commander Sigilus grabs Rose by the throat and scolds her for ruining a young man's bright future. But she tells him to scram as Ken is her student, and she'll train him how she wants to. She also adds that she's going to make Ken her right-hand man, because he's one tough cookie who has survived all of her training, and Ken can't believe she's actually praising him. She then tells Ken to take a break to catch up with his friends, so they rest under a tree, where Ken notices that they're accompanied by a blonde shawty. She introduces herself as Princess Celia, and Ken gets on his knees, apologizing for being so casual with her. Celia tells him she prefers to be formal, and then pulls out a tasty-looking pie for everyone to enjoy. Kazuki then asks Ken if he goes through such harsh training every day, but Ken says today's training was actually pretty light. Kazuki then tells him about his own training schedule, adding that his mentors are very careful about their well-being. When Ken says Rose pounds him brutally every day, Suzune lifts Ken's shirt and starts drooling over his six-pack, which awakens her inner Diddy. Kazuki then asks him how he's acting so normal despite harsh training, and Ken admits that even though he initially wanted to run away, he has grown to like his new routine. He then shows him his magic, stating that he wants to be useful just like them. Suzune asks if he'll give her a CPR if she's ever in trouble, but Ken is certain she won't need his help because she's not normal. Just then, Tong brings him some food, but Ken gives him a death stare because he stole Ken's lunch earlier, and this starts a brawl between the two. Celia gets worried for Ken's safety, but Kazuki tells her Ken will be fine because this is an average Tuesday for him. Suzune agrees, noting that Ken looks happy here, so they decide to head back to the castle while he enjoys his battle with his new friend. That night, Ken is taking a shower and recalls how Suzune was drooling over him, which makes him realize he's indeed become jacked.
Yeah, boy.
Despite his body being a powerhouse, Ken asks himself if his mind is strong enough to match his physique. The next day during breakfast, Rose throws a heavy bag in Ken's face, which is her formal way of inviting him to go out. She then takes him to the border, where she scares the guards into letting them pass through. Soon enough, they reach a forest called Darkness of Linger, and she explains that it's filled with monsters, and he's not allowed to come back until he hunts down a grand grizzly. Ken starts to throw fits because grand grizzlies are basically the final boss of bears, but Rose tells him he's got this before yeeting him into the forest. Now free falling, Ken starts to panic until he realizes he's the protagonist, so he uses his healing powers to cushion his landing and ensure that his bones aren't broken. Afterward, he hypes himself up, saying that this is a piece of cake for him, but a giant white bear shows up and snaps him back to reality. As he runs for his life, he recalls all the training he's had and decides to fight, only for two blue bears to join the hunt. Ken starts running again and finds himself on top of a waterfall, so he jumps below and manages to slip away from the bears. Now drenched, rests on a tree branch and waits for his clothes to dry as he eats some food. However, since the sun is going down, he decides to call it a day. The next day, he marks his base and heads out into the forest, leaving more markings as he goes to guide him home. After some searching, he comes across a tree with claw marks and immediately puts his guard up. Just then, he sees a rabbit come out of a bush and sees that the poor guy has hurt himself. Ken uses his healing magic to fix the bunny up, and then goes back to looking for bears, only to see that the bunny is following him. He tells him to shoo away because he's being chased by monsters, only to realize that the little guy is leading him to the bear's base. After finding where the bears live, he heads to the river to collect some water, but the bunny joins him again, so Ken decides to make him a friend. Later, as he's watching the bears sleep and realizes that he's enjoying himself, only to get sick the next day thanks to the river water. His healing magic doesn't seem to work, and while he's suffering, his bunny friend returns to comfort him. The next day, it takes Ken to a pond where the water is safe to drink, but while Ken is checking it out, the bunny suddenly gets scared and climbs up a tree. Ken follows to see what's going on, only to see a giant snake with bloodlust oozing from its body. Seeing this, Ken gets so terrified that he forgets to breathe and promises himself to stay away from the snack. A few days later, he watches the bears again, and even though he finds their family cute, he knows he must take them out to go home. The next day, he decides to finally take the bear on, but when he heads to their home, he learns that they've been sliced to death already. Looking at the bite marks, Ken realizes this is the giant snake's doing, who didn't want to eat the bears but rather hunt them for fun. He then spots a baby bear alive in the rubble, and seeing him cry for his dead parents hits a nerve, so he promises the baby bear that he'll avenge his parents. Meanwhile, Suzune and Kazuki visit Rose's to see Ken, but they learn he's been training in the forest for the last 10 days. Kazuki gets worried because Ken's been gone longer than your dad, but the guys tell him that Rose calls the shots here, so they can't bring Ken back until she says so. On his way back, Kazuki shares his growing concern with Suzune, but she assures him that Ken has plot armor and will make it back soon. Meanwhile, Ken prepares a wooden spear for himself and asks his friend Rabbit to take him to the snakes, and the little guy reluctantly agrees. After some traveling, Ken finally locates the snack but gets shocked to see that the baby bear has also come for revenge. Despite being scared, Ken tells himself that he's seen scarier things and charges into the beast, popping its eye like a balloon. Now in pain, the snack sends him flying into a tree, but Ken heals himself with magic and pulls out his knife to defend himself. However, when the snake bites his arm, he powers through the pain and stabs it from the inside, causing the snake to let go. However, he suddenly feels poison running through his blood, and despite having no prior experience in curing poison, he manages to do it. When the snack attacks again, the baby bear helps Ken, and this allows him to land on top of the snake's head. Firstly, he knocks it out with a brutal punch, followed by shoving the wooden spear into its skull, finally sending the snake back to God. Afterward, the baby bear starts cuddling with Ken, but Ken can't even move after all the hits he's taken. Just then, he realizes that every boss in Sekiro had a phase 2 and manifests the snack coming back to life. Unable to move, Ken starts cussing Rose, who sent him to his death, but she appears at the last second and stomps on the snake's head, ending it in a single blow. Ken wonders how she got here, only to learn that the bunny he befriended is actually Rose's pet Kukuru, who was sent to spy on him. She also says she was nearby the whole time in case Ken needed his help, and she never expected him to run into such a big beast. She explains that this is the Demon Lord's creation, and Sigilus failed to finish it off during the last invasion, so it fled into the forest. She also never expected the snake to defeat 2 grizzlies, because even one alone is strong enough to defeat a full unit of elite troops. Ken finally understands that his cakes were doomed to be clapped from the get-go, but Rose says she wasn't expected to win but to learn to survive against something much stronger than him. However, Rose admits he got interested in testing Ken's limits, so she waited until the last moment to intervene. Just then, the baby bear starts growling at Rose, which makes Ken realize that he now has a friend. With that, the bear carries him on its back, because he's still unable to move, and Rose announces that Ken passed the test with flying colors. Once they are out, she tells him he's qualified to join her on the battlefield, and there's a chance he'll make it out alive. When he asks what she's talking about, she tells him that the Demon Lord is going to attack their kingdom soon. Rose tells Ken that he'll be at the front lines as part of the vanguard, and when he questions what the other healers will do, she says they have different roles. Ken says he's far from being as strong as her, but Rose says they still have time, and she'll kick his cakes into shape. Meanwhile, the Demon Lord summons Amelia, a busty commander with massive jugs, and she informs him that the forces are ready to attack the Linger Kingdom. The Demon Lord reminds her that despite their previous success, the humans managed to escape their grasp, so he expects her to do her best. After she assures her that she will succeed, she heads out to the halls to take a sigh of relief. That's when Dr. Hyreluk shows up and starts teasing her. But when she walks away, he tells her he's created a new demon prototype, which piques her curiosity. She heads to his lab, where he shows her a giant snake monster called Baljinak. But Amelia recalls he made a similar one before that went missing during the last invasion. Hyreluk recalls what happened, so he's made this one even stronger than before, which Amelia thinks will be good against the kidnappers. She is talking about the medics who carry the injured to the rear and prevent deaths, and their leader, Rose, is the itch in her cakes that she can't get rid of. Amelia wants to defeat Rose, but she's been assigned as the commander for this invasion and can't fight directly, so she chooses a badass-looking Black Knight in her place. The next day, Ken wakes up in his soft bed, and he's so homesick that Tong's snorting sounds like music to his ears. Afterward, he heads to the shed to feed his new pet bear. But when Kukuru asks for some food too, he tells it to scram because it tricked him during the test. However, Kukuru starts cuddling with him, so he gives up acting mad and feeds it too. He then decides to name the bear Blurin, but Rose arrives and realizes that he's worse at naming things than Elon Musk. She also reveals that she got permission from the king to keep the bear, but it will remain the property of the rescue team. She then passes a grin to Blurin and threatens to turn him into lunch if he slacks, causing the poor bear to hide. Later, Rose makes Ken carry Blurin on top of the extra weights and says it's to simulate what he'll be experiencing on the battlefield. As Ken starts moving, thinking it'll be a breeze, he's suddenly ambushed by Tong and the other members of the rescue team. As he wonders what's going on, they reveal that they're simulating the battlefield, which makes Ken run even faster. He keeps getting ambushed by more and more people, but after dodging and running for 4 hours, Ken finally collapses from exhaustion. Just then, Rose shows up and tells him that she lasts longer in bed compared to his time on the field. After restoring his muscles with her magic, she tells him to rest up because he'll be running it again. Soon after, Ken carries Blurin around the castle, but everyone acts like it's no big deal, much to his confusion. He stops by a fruit seller and asks why people are so calm even though he's carrying a monster. She says it's because they know he's from the rescue team, and people are used to seeing their kind doing this training every day. He then thanks the lady for the info and heads off, but a cat girl named Amako takes an interest in him. Meanwhile, as Ken keeps running, a blonde guy spots him and starts running after him to grab his attention. After the man falls on his face, Ken finally notices him and heals his leg before asking why he was embarrassing himself. He then introduces himself as Orga, revealing that he is one of the healers on the rescue team who has been training with the other heroes. He also praises Ken for keeping up with Rose's training, admitting that he and his sister couldn't manage, so they came to the city and started a clinic. Ken asks him why he collapsed earlier, and Orga admits he's pretty bad at using healing magic on himself. But even then, he and his sister helped the rescue team in times of need. Hearing this reminds Ken of what Rose told her, and Orga adds that he will be in the rear waiting for Tong and the others to bring the injured. Ken reveals he will be on the front lines and wonders if he can really manage there, only for Orga to reveal that only the strongest knights are at the front, who are often left to die once they fall, if not for the healers at the front lines. He knows this is one of the toughest jobs, so he's certain Rose won't ask Ken to be there if she didn't have complete trust in his abilities. Ken thanks him for the motivation and decides to leave, but Orga asks him not to hate Rose because she's a Pookie at heart. Heeding to his advice, Ken runs off while Orga's sister Ururu shows up, scolding him for being late. Meanwhile, Ken reaches the castle gate and seeks the guard's permission to enter, and the guard lets him in because Rose already informed them of it. Inside, he runs into Suzune, and they both take a break from their respective training to catch up. Ken notices that her hand is all bruised up from all the training, so he gently grabs it and uses healing magic to patch her up. Seeing this, Suzune starts to blush, saying she's flattered he came to see her, but when he adds he came to see Kazuki too, she finally understands why he was a lonely virgin in school. She then tells him that Kazuki is with Commander Siglis at the border, where he'll be hunting monsters to gain some battle experience. After Kazuki returns, she will be the one going for hunts, but Ken knows she'll have fun slaying because she was super excited when they first came here. After that, he carries Blurin again and heads off, leaving Suzune to cherish how they'd become good friends so soon. Later that night, Ken makes it back and puts Blurin to sleep, only to find Rose watching the moon. He approaches her and tells her that before today, He was Mr. Pissy Pants when he learned that he was going to the front lines. But now, he has a new goal of protecting the people he cares for, like Suzune and Kazuki. So he'll train even harder tomorrow. Seeing his resolve, Rose offers him words of encouragement, and he hypes up as he finally feels like a part of the team. The next day, Rose wakes him up to reveal that he's been summoned by the king to join Suzune in her training outside the castle. On the way, Ken asks why they're only joining Suzune and not Kazaki. And Rose says he refused the request last time because he was injured. She could not refuse the request this time. So she tells Ken that he's only tagging along as a safety measure, which means he shouldn't play hero. Soon after, he meets Suzune outside the castle, and she gets excited to meet Bluerin again. She also introduces him to her squad mates, Aruku, the knight, and Korin the mage, and Ken realizes he's seen Aruku before, only for Aruku to reveal he works as the castle gatekeeper. Amid the pleasantries, Rose sternly tells Suzune that Ken's healing magic can heal injuries and poison, but it cannot revive the dead, so she must stay careful. Then, she turns to Ken and tells him to disappoint her like he disappointed his parents before heading off. Meanwhile, Kazuki is practicing with the sword when he shows up and scolds him for not resting enough. He tells her he is fine, and even flexes his muscles to show her. But this awakens something primal in her, so she runs off in embarrassment. Subsequently, Ken and the others start their journey to the darkness of Linger, which is the same forest where Ken was a while ago. He wonders if Bluerin would feel nostalgia going back there. But just then, Suzune sees that he's sleeping and tries to pet him like a crazy person. Ken swats her hand and asks if she got hit in the head or was always this stupid. But she gets annoyed because he's treated her like a bro. When Bluerin wakes up from all the yapping, Ken asks him to walk on his own feet, but the baby bear is still very sleepy. Seeing this, Suzune offers to carry him on his back, but as soon as he steps on it, she gets crushed under his weight. Later, they start walking again, and Suzune apologizes to Ken because she made him use his healing magic already. Just then, Korin senses multiple creatures ahead, and they turn out to be some nasty bandits who haven't touched a woman or water in months. They demand that Ken and the squad hand over all their valuables, but Suzune gets excited to see them. Bluerin then peeks out from behind Ken, and the bandits realize they're in deep trouble. However, when one of them threatens to turn Bluerin into a doormat, Pikachu gets furious and uses Thunderbolt on him. As the others charge in, she electrocutes them too, but Korin suddenly senses something else coming. Soon enough, they're ambushed by a horde of fall boars. But even with Bluerin's attempts to help, Ken and Suzune get flung into the air. Ken uses his healing magic to make sure they land safely, but they end up landing in a stream, and Ken instantly realizes they're on top of the waterfall. He asks Suzune to brace for impact, but the next thing he remembers is waking up with Suzune trying to carry him to the shore. She promises to protect him with her life, but Ken tells him she ain't his Barbie, so she pushes him back. After he heals her wounds, she apologizes for getting him into this mess, but he tells her not to worry because he had his own man versus wild here. Since the sun's going down, he suggests they sleep in the tree like he did last time, but she doesn't know how because her parents never let her. Ken realizes Suzune is Elon Musk's daughter, so he suggests they spend the night in a cave instead. He then asks him to change her clothes, and she starts to blush, thinking about flashing her melons. Later, she uses her magic in the river to catch some fish, and then lights up a campfire to cook them. However, when Ken takes off his clothes to dry them off, she turns her face towards the wall because she's in her wild time of the month. Just then, she spots some cute monkeys in the cave, and despite Ken warning her they are poisonous, she starts petting them anyway because they are cute, only to get bitten and force Ken to heal her. Meanwhile, Kazuki learns that Ken and Suzune have gone missing, so he decides to go and look for them. Rose suddenly appears and tells him to hold his horses because she knows Ken has plot armor, and he will protect Suzune too. Meanwhile, Ken notices that Suzune is sleepy and offers to keep watch for the night, but she insists he sleeps first because he's used his healing magic so many times. Soon after, it begins to rain, and Suzune suddenly feels somber, asking Ken how he feels about being summoned into this world. When he says a small part of him still misses home, she responds that she'd never want to go home because she was shackled by expectations before, and now she's free. Ken says he was also stuck in a boring life, and wanted a big change, and considering how violently his routine just got flipped, this is exactly what the doctor ordered. Seeing that they have things in common, Suzune becomes motivated to protect this kingdom, and Ken joins her, saying that they should forget about the old world and focus on building this one. Hearing him talk all fancy, she notes that he's gotten mature and she really enjoys being close to him. But this awakens Ken's inner Johnny Sins. However, the man's still too shy to act on his feelings, so he pretends to fall asleep, which Suzune finds cute. The next day, they set out into the forest again and hear something approaching them. They prepare for battle, but it turns out to be Bluerin, who runs into Ken's arms. Aruku appears too and collapses from exhaustion, later explaining that he got tired of chasing after Bluerin, who had caught on to Ken's scent. Just then, Bluerin catches another scent and leads them to the place where his parents were unalived. After paying respects to them, Bluerin signals that he's ready to leave, but Ken still feels sad for him. However, Suzune extends her hand and suggests they go back, which Ken gladly takes. As they return to the royal palace, Lloyd apologizes for putting them into this mess, but Ken assures him it's fine because he's seen worse. Lloyd then asks how his training is going, and Ken nervously looks at Rose before telling him that he's loving every single day because he's worried about getting his coconuts cracked. After that, Ken and Suzune are dismissed, but Ken is curious because Rose and Siglas were told to stay because of some important matter. Just then, Kazuki comes running in with Celia and scolds them for worrying him, but Ken and Suzune act like they were at a theme park, which confuses him. As they sit outside, Kazuki tells them Rose stopped him from looking for them because she was certain they'd manage fine. Kazuki thinks it's because Rose has faith in Ken's abilities, when in reality, Ken has been put through so much worse that the forest is a walk in the park for him. After that, they start talking about all the dumb things Suzune did, and Celia finds this cute. Later, she tells Kazuki that he looks much happier when he's with his friends, and he says it's because they're all from the same world. This makes her sad, and she asks him if there's room in his heart for her, followed by asking him to call her by name, to which he agrees. Meanwhile, the king is joined by Rose, Siglas, and the advisor Sergio, who states that the boars that attacked the heroes' party live deep in the forest, and it seems as if they were running away from something. Lloyd believes it's the work of the Demon Lord's army, so he asks Siglas to prepare all forces, and Sergio to inform the ministers. The last one remaining is Rose, who figures she'll be sent out to pinpoint the location of the demon army. Lloyd apologizes for putting her through this, but Rose humbly accepts, admitting that she's right for the job as she runs faster than your dad did when you were born. Before she leaves, Lloyd asks him to become a commander like before, but she refuses because she thinks she's not good enough. Even when Lloyd tries to comfort her, she recalls how she let many soldiers die under her command, and the scar on her eye is a reminder that she's not worthy of commanding. That is why she created the rescue team to atone for her mistakes, but she has another goal: to find a subordinate who will never die. After years of searching, she has found the perfect guy who has so much plot armor he makes Reiner look like a noob. She lists all the qualities that Ken has, adding that his biggest one is that he never gives up, no matter what she puts him through. However, she suddenly realizes she's yapping too much and apologizes before leaving for patrol. At night, she leaves a note to Ken, telling him to deliver a letter to a certain location while she leaves for business. Meanwhile, Emilia is guiding the demons to build a bridge in heavy rain, but the Black Knight thinks she's an annoying brat, which pisses her off. When she argues with him, the Black Knight gets tired of her yapping and leaves. Hyreluk arrives to tell her that the bridge is almost complete, and she gets excited to crush some human skulls. Just then, her men spot a human scout, but she tells them not to ignore it and focus on the bridge. However, the scout throws a giant log that destroys the bridge, and Emilia looks up to see Mommy Rose Aura farming like a final boss. This takes Emilia back to the last time they fought, but Rose runs off because her only job was to scout. The next day, Ken is delivering the letter in the city and passes by the fruit seller he had met earlier and catches the attention of Amiko. Soon enough, he reaches the house the letter is addressed to, and it turns out to be Ururu in Orga's clinic. Ururu welcomes him in, and after she introduces himself, Ken gets tired of her yapping and asks to see Orga. She leads him to the examination room, where Ken sees Orga use healing magic, making him realize Orga is miles ahead of him in terms of healing prowess. Afterward, Ken delivers the letter to Orga, and while Ruru and Ken are talking, he checks it out and nervously puts it back in the envelope. Oruru then tells him how she and Orga were super excited to have Rose as their mentor, but the training got so rough that they could not keep up and had to leave. She also notes that Rose looks much happier than before, and Ken believes it's because she has a new punching bag. Just then, a local runs in and reports an accident, so they all rush to the site to find 3 injured people. As they take one each, Ken realizes this is the first time he's dealing with an injury this big, and he wonders if he's even prepared to see worse on the battlefield. That's when Orga offers him words of encouragement, and remembering what Kazuki said to him, Ken locks in and heals the injured. On their way back, Orga and Ururu praise his skills and even ask him to lend them a hand at the clinic if he's free, But Ken has main character things to do, so he heads off. Uru then compliments Orga because he helped Ken calm down. But Orga suddenly gets stern, telling Uru that Rose asked them to prepare for war. This wipes the smile off her face, and Orga says he's worried about Ken because he's never been to a battle before. He believes Rose must have trained Ken for this day, but he still wants to help and assures her they'll be fine. Meanwhile, Ken gets some fruits and heads on his way, only to be stopped by Amako, who starts spewing nonsense about him being the Messiah. Just as Ken sees into her eyes, he's given a view of what the battle will look like, and he sees the Black Knight slicing up everyone he knows, including Suzune and Kazuki. Amako then tells him that she's done him a huge favor before running away, but this does permanent damage to Ken's brain. Terrified at what he saw, Ken chases after Amako for answers, but she disappears from his sight and leaves him desperate. Ken goes to the gatekeeper, asking if he has seen her, but the man says he hasn't. Just then, Rose shows up and asks what's going on, but the gatekeeper gets scared of her and leaves. When Ken passes a crude remark about her being a menace, she grabs him by the face and lifts him to punish him. After letting go, she reveals she was on patrol and saw the Demon Lord's army building a bridge to cross the river into Linger. She adds that she destroyed the bridge, but when Ken asks him if she knows what scouting means, she grabs him by the face again. Later, as they walk back, Ken asks her about Amako, and Rose says she's a fox girl who showed up in Linger 2 years ago. Turns out Amako was abducted by slave traders but managed to escape on her own. She further explains that beast girls are valuable because they give a good sloppy toppy and also because they have special skills. Ken asks her if these skills include creating illusions, like showing nightmares or a terrible possible future. Hearing this, Rose tells him about the beastkin known as the Oracles of Time, who are basically Doctor Strange of this world. Those beast folks are super rare and never leave home, so Ken tells Rose he read about them in a book to avoid suspicion. Rose then tells him to skedaddle home, while she heads to the palace to report what she saw, and Lloyd thanks him for destroying the bridge. However, she is certain the demons will be in their lands in a few days, so Lloyd decides to address the people tomorrow and asks Sergio to make preparations. Soon after, Suzune and Kazuki are summoned to the palace, and they run into Celia on the way. She starts acting weird around Kazuki and tells them to hurry to the palace. But after she leaves, Suzune wonders if Kazuki refused to clap her because she appeared sad. Meanwhile, Ken is unable to sleep after what Amako showed him and wonders if she showed him the future because he has the power to change it. Just then, he sees bright lights outside his window and checks it out, only to see Kazuki waiting outside. As they get together, Ken asks him if he's too excited to sleep, but Kazuki goes silent, making Ken question if he's okay. Kazuki reveals that the king summoned them earlier and told them that the war against the Demon Lord was going to start soon. While Suzune was excited, Kazuki became Mr. Pissy Pants, and he ran away to him. He starts trembling as he admits that he's terrified of fighting and didn't do well even during his training. He adds that the people of this nation have been super kind to him, and they have certain expectations of him, which scares him even more. Hearing this, Ken says he finds Kazuki really cool because before this, he thought Kazuki was never scared of anything. Ken believes others feel the same way about Kazuki, which puts him under pressure, but he also says that Kazuki doesn't need to live up to others' expectations all the time. Kazuki asks Ken how he feels about the war, and Ken says he's going to the front lines to save others. He also admits he's scared of it, but he's already made up his mind and won't back out. Kazuki anxiously mentions that he could die out there, but Kazuki doesn't know that Ken is the main character. Hearing this, Kazuki slaps himself in the face because he's been acting like a wuss all day. And with newfound confidence, he promises to fight to protect others. Ken tells him not to get too hyped, but Kazuki has already made up his mind and thanks Ken for making him feel better. After an intense session of bromance, Kazuki heads back to the castle, and Suzune appears from hiding to tease Ken. However, Ken knows she followed Kazuki because she was worried for him, and she admits this, happy that Ken was able to cheer Kazuki on. Ken says he still doesn't want Kazuki to fight, so Suzune grabs him and asks if he feels the same for her. Ken responds that her case is different because she's already decided to stay in this world, and she admits he's right and heads off to the castle. The next day, Lloyd informs his forces about the upcoming battle and hypes them up by reminding them that they have the power of God and anime by their side. He also tells them that the rescue team will be joining in this war, and their incredible healers will make sure no one dies. After listening to his morale-boosting speech, Kazuki visits Celia in her chambers, and she realizes he's come to say goodbye before leaving for battle. She wishes him good luck with a smile, and Kazuki promises to be back. He then calls her by her first name as she had asked, and this makes her blush and worry for him as he walks away. That evening at Rose's house, Oruru gets super excited to see Blurin, who now looks like a fully grown bear. When she tries petting him, Blurin smacks her hand away, which makes her sad. Just then, Ken sees Orga struggling to carry medical supplies and rushes to help him. Orga then looks at Oruru and mentions that this is her first battle, and she's trying to distract herself by acting like a buffoon. As they're talking, Tong tells Ken that Rose wants to see him, and Ken starts to worry about his cakes. Once in her room, she reminds him of his role on the battlefield but also tells him not to be clumsy with his healing. Ken asks what she means, and Rose explains that if he were to heal people with minor wounds, he would get in the way. She then slides him a box, and Ken opens it to see his very own rescue team uniform, which hypes him up. As he tries it on, Rose sternly tells him that he's not immortal, and the worst thing he can do on the battlefield is not value his own life. Ken casually says he doesn't plan on dying, but she grabs his face and sternly tells him not to be a fool. She also tells him that if she catches him acting like a fool, she'll end him before the enemy. So Ken promises to value his life before anything else. With that, he exits the room, and despite what Imako showed him, he vows that he will protect Kazuki and Suzune. Soon after, the rescue team sets out on a journey to the border, because that's where the battle will be taking place. Ken asks Rose what these demons are like, and she says they're demi-human, who look like them but are much stronger. She then asks him if he's scared, but Ken says he's not because she's trained him to become a raid boss. He admits he only stuck around at first because he wanted to get one over her, expecting Rose to smack him in the face. However, Rose stays silent, because her mind is filled with her subordinates, who died during the previous war and decided to share the story with Ken. 5 years ago, Rose was the commander of Knights, and Lloyd summoned her along with others to inform them of demon sightings near the forest. Even though there were no casualties so far, Lloyd asked them not to engage the demons. After the meeting, Siglis asked Rose what she thought of it, and Rose hinted that demons might invade the kingdom. Siglis felt the same way and told her that he'd prepare his men for the worst, so Rose decided to prepare her troops too. Just then, one of her students, named All, started asking her if demons were really invading, and Rose smacked her head for eavesdropping. As they walked home, All was confident they could easily defeat the demons, but Rose told her to take this more seriously. Once they returned to the base, Rose was already pretty annoyed and told her students to train harder, but they started beating All up because she was the reason they were going to get smacked. A week later, Lloyd told Rose that demons were closing in, so he asked her to scout ahead and engage if necessary. That night, she told her students that they would be heading out tomorrow to scout the forest, and while others were worried, All was excited to fight the demons. When the others started beating her up for being a moron, Rose sternly told them that this mission was dangerous, and she'd be joining them too, which boosted their morale. The next day, the squad spent hours searching for demons, but didn't find any and decided to camp for the night. All then told them that they would head deeper into the forest tomorrow, and even though others knew it was dangerous, they agreed with All, because she was their deputy commander. Later that night, Rose stayed up to keep watch, but noticed that All couldn't sleep either, so she invited him by the fire. All asked her why she was chosen as deputy, even though she was average, and Rose told her it was because she was good at everything. Rose also told All that she'll become the next commander after her, and All started panicking because it was too sudden. She also thought she was not right for the job because she never listened to anyone and did what felt right to her. That is, until the day she met Rose, who didn't give two forks about her morals and beat her up until she was mended into shape. While it was a normal Tuesday for Rose, All saw it differently, stating how most people would get fed up with her antics, but Rose never gave up on her. She believes others feel the same way about Rose because she understands them the best, which is why All believes only Rose can be their commander. Hearing this, Rose flicked her forehead and told her she was just a brat who didn't want to leave the nest. She also told All that since she understood them the best, she'd never pass down the command to someone unworthy. Rose believed All was right for the job because she had a never-give-up attitude, and people would naturally follow her. After some words of encouragement, Rose called it a night and told everyone to go to sleep, and All saw that everyone was listening to them. The squad mates told All that she was the right pick for being deputy, and this made her blush hard. The next day, the squad found traces of demons and monsters in the forest, and they followed the trail to locate a demon camp. The demon commander immediately noticed their presence and called them out, so Rose stepped up and asked him why demons were hunting monsters on human territory. Instead of answering, the demon commander said he can't let them live because they've seen them now. So Rose made All in charge of the squad and charged the demon commander head-on. The commander used a wind spell to slice her, but Rose dodged with super speed and sent him flying into the thick forest. However, she couldn't get a clean hit, and her own leg was cut in the process. so she decided to chase after the commander to end him. She then pulled out whole trees from the forest and hurled them towards the commander, squishing him like a mole. However, the commander powered up and trapped her in a tornado of wind blades that would cut her into bits. Surprisingly, Rose activated her healing and took all the hits head-on, finally earning the demon commander's respect. He introduced himself as Nero and pulled out his special weapon, promising to go all out and end this battle here. Rose immediately noticed that the sword was imbued with a curse, so she avoided it and sent Nero flying back to camp. There, Nero noticed that his demon soldiers were struggling against Rose's troops, making him realize that humans weren't as weak as he thought. However, he declared that their true lord will awaken soon and end the suppression against him in kind. Seeing a red aura around his body, Rose suddenly realized she messed up big time. Just then, one of the dead demons became a zombie and grabbed one of Rose's students. Even when she attacked the demon, he didn't let go and smacked her in the head with a hammer, and both of them died on the spot. Following that, Rose's students fell one after the other, and it was all thanks to the cursed sword that had made the demons extremely powerful. As Rose watched in horror, she recklessly attacked Nero, but he scared her eye. Noting that Rose was easy to read, because she was no longer in control. When Rose tried to heal it, Nero told her that her sword was cursed, and any wound afflicted by it was resistant to healing. Despite that, Rose pushed forward but was humbled real quick, so much so that she couldn't even defend herself. Just when Nero swung his sword, all suddenly jumped in front and took the hit, which made her die on the spot. Rose then looked to the side and realized that all of her subordinates were dead, and this reminded her of how confident they were in her healing abilities before the mission. At that moment, Rose realized she had been blinded by her power. So when Nero took a swing at her, she grabbed his sword by hand. Now enraged, she gave a 90s housewife treatment to Nero. But just before she could finish him off, she saw a young Amelia, Nero's helpless student, who couldn't watch her master die. Seeing Amelia's teary eyes, Rose saw a reflection of all, which broke her from the inside as she realized that demons weren't so different from humans after all. Just then, she heard All's voice and crawled to her to heal her wound. However, the healing didn't work as Nero said, and All told Rose not to waste her magic, as she was happy to die fighting alongside her. She told Rose that others felt the same right as she took her last breath, and seeing the death of her entire squad, Rose screamed in agony. Later, she returned to the palace and informed everyone that the demon lord would soon be resurrected. But the sorrow on their face about Rose's squad was visible. Rose then asked Lloyd to remove her as a commander and strip her of her knighthood, and the king granted her wish out of respect. As she returned home with her head low, two old folks greeted her and told her they were Josh's parents, who had been slain in the last battle. Rose apologized to them for not protecting Josh, but his parents thanked her for bringing his body back as they got to see their son one last time. After this, Rose returned to her empty home that still had leftover equipment from her squad and cowered in the corner. A whole month later, Sigilus visited her, and Rose told him that she was thinking of joining her students in the afterlife. But Sigilus aggressively grabbed her, then let her go because he knew she was hurt. He also noticed that the wounds inflicted by the cursed sword were healing, and Rose concluded that the curse was temporary. This meant that she could heal her eye too, but she refused to because it was a reminder of her sin. She also decided to live so All's sacrifice didn't go to waste, but she was not sure what to do with her life. Later, she sat in the quiet living room and imagined how lively it used to be with everyone around, blaming herself for being fragile and weak. She wondered how her students would react if they saw her in her emo stage, only for her to become schizo and create an illusion of All trying to cheer her on. The rest of her squad appeared too and told her to stop being a crybaby and be the person she always was, and this finally allowed her to cry and grieve. Afterward, she regained her composure and vowed that she would create a new squad that would save lives. So she started looking for recruits for the rescue team. At present, she tells Ken that, for all those years, he has been the only one after her who can be efficient in both healing and fighting, which is why she's certain he won't die. Meanwhile, the demons have finished rebuilding the bridge, and the Black Knight is ready to play Fruit Ninja with their bodies. However, Amelia warns them about the medics because she's seen what Rose can do, but the chance of fighting someone this strong only makes the Black Knight feel more alive. A few days later, the human forces set up camp near the border, and Ken wakes up early to clear his mind. He notices that Suzune is also up, and she eagerly shows him her new armor, in hopes that he'll fall for her and give her backshots. She also reveals that the armor is designed to support her thunder magic, as well as give her agility. In her excitement, she awakens her inner Diddy and starts bothering Ken, only for Kazuki to appear and restrain her. He tells Suzune that Commander Sigilus wants to see them, so she leaves but promises to come back to Ken's sausage. Later, Isekai'd tells the heroes that the demons will be attacking in an hour, and they are expected to cut through the front lines and open a path to the enemy commander. As they get stationed, Suzune tells Kazuki not to play the hero, but he tells her he'll be fine. He also teases her for using Ken as a distraction, and despite admitting to it, she says she is excited for battle. Kazuki notes that she's changed a lot since coming here, and she says it's thanks to Ken, who accepted her wholeheartedly. Just then, the demon army becomes visible, and the mages immediately start firing spells in their direction. That's when they learn that it was just an illusion, and the real enemy is attacking from the west. As Suzune and Kazuki head west, Rose sends the rescue team to fetch the injured, and she asks Orga and Aruru to be ready to heal, with Aruku guarding them. As for Ken, Rose tells him she will join him on the front once the combat injuries escalate. Within seconds, Tong returns with some injured knights, and the squad begins healing them. One of them tells Ken that she was attacked by a giant snake, which is still causing havoc on the battlefield. As the Black Knight watches from a distance, a soldier comes in and stabs him from behind. Not only does it do no damage, but the soldier himself also gets fatally injured without the Black Knight moving a muscle. Before the guy meets his maker, a member of the rescue team yoinks him, and the Black Knight recalls Amelia telling him about these medics. This only excites the psycho even more, but when he sees thunder magic in the distance, he decides to check that out instead. Later, as things get busy in the camp, Rose tells Ken that it's time for them to head out, and Ken tells her he's ready. As they rush out, Rose tells Ken about the guy in black armor who's dangerous, and this recalls seeing him in his vision. When he suddenly stops, Rose sees the look on his face and asks if he has it in him to take lives. Ken says his job is only to save lives, but Rose calls him a naive fool and gives him some secret advice that will help him live in case he's left with no other options. With that, she tells him to take the right flank, and they go their separate ways. Ken soon arrives at the front lines and quickly rescues one of the knights, while on the left flank, Rose does the same. Subsequently, Suzune uses her thunder magic to defeat several demons, but she can't help but feel sorry for them. As she decides to push forward with Kazuki, the Black Knight suddenly appears with some backup, which sends chills down everyone's spines. Some of the soldiers attack him, but once again, their attacks do no damage, and they somehow end up injured. Kazuki recklessly tries to attack the Black Knight, but Suzune pushes him, which makes his attack land on the knight's shoulder. Kazuki asks her what she's doing, and she says the Black Knight is using a skill called Reflect. Just then, Kazuki feels immense pain in his shoulder, and this confirms her theory about the Reflect skill. Hearing this, the Black Knight is intrigued by Suzune and challenges her to a duel. Meanwhile, Ken suddenly sees the vision of her death and feels a severe pain in his head, which almost gets him chopped up. Luckily, the guy whom he healed moments ago returns to save him, and after thanking him, Ken rushes to the front lines to save Suzune and Kazuki. Meanwhile, Suzune comes up with a secret plan to defeat the Black Knight, and even though it seems dangerous, Kazuki agrees to do it. Using her lighting, she creates a cloud of dust and uses it as cover to deal damage. But the Black Knight uses Reflect and sends the damage back to her. However, the damage on the Black Knight's back is not reflected, so she tells Kazuki to give this another shot. This time, Kazuki uses his light magic to blind the knight, while Suzune uses her lightning magic to become Flash and stab him in the back. She concludes that the Black Knight is unable to use Reflect, because he didn't see the attack coming. So she asks Kazuki to attack the Black Knight head-on. Just as Kazuki leaps in, the Black Knight reveals that he was blushing and stabs Kazuki in the chest, while also returning the damage of Suzune's previous attack. With Kazuki on the verge of death, Suzune realizes she messed up and falls to her knees. At that moment, she reminisces about her time back on Earth when she met Ken for the first time. Unlike her, who always wanted an escape from her life, Ken was different and worked extra hard to fit into his new role. He also accepted her for who she was, and that made her think she could do anything in this world. However, now she's 2 seconds away from death. But Ken comes running in and smacks the Black Knight in the face. He then looks at his friends in horror, but seeing that they're still clinging to life, he rushes to heal their wounds. As Suzune regains consciousness, the Black Knight gets back up with her mask half broken and screams at Ken. She then regenerates the mask and charges Ken down. But Ken grabs his friends and makes a run for it. When the Black Knight catches up, Ken finally stops, and Suzune explains to him what skills the knight has. However, Ken's punch somehow worked against her, meaning he is the only one who can fight her. Hearing this, Ken charges the knight head-on, and after dodging her attacks, he closes the distance and punches her in the face. Once again, her armor breaks, and this sends her into a rage, causing her to attack recklessly. Just then, Kazuki wakes up too, and both heroes are in awe when they see Ken going toe-to-toe with the Black Knight. Just then, she pierces Ken's hand, but her armor melts, which makes Ken wonder why her attacks don't work against him. Suzune then notices that Ken is constantly healing his body on the go, which means every time he touches the knight, he heals her too. It finally clicks to her that the Black Knight's biggest weakness is healing magic, and Ken is beating her by healing her by accident. Turns out, the injuries Ken is inflicting are healed faster than she can use, reflect, but the sheer impact of Ken's fists leaves her in immense pain. As the Black Knight falls to her knees, she can't understand why her skill isn't working and pulls out her ultimate weapon in rage. However, Ken doesn't give two forks and charges head-on, carefully dodging her attack and punching her straight in the gut with all his strength. Calling it a healing punch, he then uses a strong healing magic on her body, which completely destroys her armor and knocks her out. With their commander captured, the demons run away, and Ken is hailed the hero of the war. Suzune thanks him for saving their lives, and then, she also asks him how he came up with the idea of a healing punch, and he reveals it was thanks to Rose. Earlier, when he said he didn't want to take lives, Rose told him to imbue his fist in healing magic and punch someone, which would knock them out without unaliving them. Just then, Kazuki tells them that the snake has moved to the front line, and they decide to go there immediately. However, Rose stops Ken and tells him to explain why the heroes almost died when he was supposed to cover them. Ken then fills her in on everything that happened, and Rose is impressed that he managed to defeat her on his own. She then tells him to come back to the camp because the battle is now under control, so he informs the rest and runs back. Meanwhile, Amelia is horrified to learn that her strongest soldier was captured by the humans. She asks the informant who did this, and he informs her that it was a member of the rescue team wearing a white uniform. She believes it was Rose, but the informant says it was someone else. Hearing this, she tells Hyreluk to call the snake back because they are withdrawing, admitting that they don't have enough forces to defend their camp, and the humans haven't even deployed their low-budget commander Erwin. Hyreluk agrees to call the snack back, but when he tries to command it, he sees that Suzune and Kazuki are standing in front, ready to redeem themselves by slaying it. Back in camp, things are going smoothly until everyone sees a huge flash of light and thunder in the sky, signaling that the heroes have defeated the snake. With that, Rose declares that they've won this battle, but the demons will return for a round 2. She also gives Ken credit for their success today, because if he hadn't healed the heroes and defeated the Black Knight, they would have surely lost this battle. For the first time in years, Rose wears a smile as she tells him she's proud of him, and everything Ken has been through all this time suddenly feels worth it. This hits him so deep that it makes him tear up, and he admits he was scared to death when he went to the front lines. Despite this, he is happy to be fighting alongside Rose, which reminds him of all, who once said the same thing to her. Rose finally feels like she has redeemed herself and praises Ken for staying alive, only for him to fall into her arms from exhaustion. After the war ends, Ken chills out with Bluerin in the shed, reminiscing about how he was hailed a hero by the king in front of everyone. Just then, one of his subordinates informs him that he's been summoned to the castle, adding that he should be careful when he walks through town. Confused, Ken heads to the castle and is surrounded by his fans on the way like he's iShowSpeed on world tour. He somehow makes it to the castle gates, where Uruku is standing guard, and thanks him for saving the lives of his comrades. After chatting up with him, he heads to the throne room, where Sigilus tells him he needs his help in interrogating the Black Knight. When Ken asks why, Sigilus tells him that she has refused to say anything until her demand is met, which is to see Ken. As he heads down into the dungeons, Suzune tags along because she's calling dibs on his sausage. Ken reminds her that she already lost to the Black Knight once, but Suzune gets annoyed and says it was an unfair battle. Sigilus then reveals that the Black Knight uses dark magic that cancels out healing magic, which means that Ken's punches were much more brutal to her than he initially thought. Ken then asks Sigilus if she's received medical attention, but when he says no, Ken rushes down to her cell to check up on her. He knows she's hurt because she took all his punches directly, but when she says she enjoys the pain, Suzune jokes that she's the freaky kind. Ken asks why she wanted to see him, and she says she wanted to see the face of the man who pounded her like Johnny Sins. Hearing this, Ken asks Sigilus to open the cell so he can give her his injection. Once inside, he holds his hand to make her armor melt away, and then places his hand on her cheek to heal her wounds. Once the healing takes effect, she tears up because she's never felt something so good before, and she asks him to hold her a little longer so she can cherish this feeling. The next day, Rose oversees Ken's training personally, reminding him that the demons will attack again and he needs to be prepared. Ken thinks she's going to level up his healing magic, but Rose smirks and says she's going to punch him hard, and he has to dodge her. As Ken runs for his life, he argues that he can simply heal even if he gets hurt. But she tells him that wounds inflicted by cursed weapons cannot be healed. With that, she throws him up, but he uses healing magic to land, only for Rose to rush him and punch him so hard in the gut that it knocks him out. Later, he wakes up relieved that he can rest now, but Rose is waiting for him and punches him again. After training, he meets the Black Knight and starts complaining to her about his harsh training. But she doesn't understand why he's acting like they're friends. When he says he wanted to check up on her, she gets shy and puts on her armor, asking him to skedaddle. On his way out, he sees Kazuki practicing light magic while Celia is fangirling over him, which is very different from how Rose treats Ken. Kazuki then teases him about making the Black Knight cry, but when he starts to get annoyed, Celia comforts him by saying that even the king acknowledges his efforts. Kazuki also admits that he would have been dead if it weren't for Ken, only to realize he wasn't supposed to say that in front of Celia. After Ken leaves, Kazuki tries to get away from Celia, but she grabs him by his shirt and demands that he tell her everything that happened. Meanwhile, as Ken heads home, hoping the king doesn't order the Black Knight's execution, Rose heads to the cells to have a chat with her. She tells the knight that she has two options: either rot away in this cell or become her student. At first, the Black Knight tries to act rebelliously, but it takes mere seconds for Rose to mold her into shape with her terrifying persona. Rose even places a collar around her neck that blocks all mana and forces her to accept the second option. Meanwhile, Ken is taking a run with Blurin when Rose returns and smacks him for training on his rest day. Ken then notices her carrying the Black Knight on her shoulder and freaks out. But Rose tells him she's here to become a member of the rescue team. That night, Rose tells Ken that earlier in her conversation with the king, his name was mentioned too. The king wants to seek aid from other nations against the Demon Lord's army, and he's chosen 3 representatives to send to other countries. Those representatives are Suzune, Kazuki, and Ken, because Lloyd believes that these 3 are capable of taking on such a delicate mission. The next day, Ken heads to town to buy a journal and realizes he's become a popular topic among the ladies. Just then, Suzune appears and starts flirting with him, but Ken spots Amako and rushes to catch her. Once he does, she tells him it's time for him to pay her back and asks him to save her mother. Suzune joins him and starts fangirling upon seeing a cute fox girl, much to Ken's annoyance. He then puts Amako down, and she asks to talk to him in private. Later, the Black Knight has started her training, but it's too harsh that she collapses midway, wishing that she'd rather die. Just then, Rose appears and smacks her in the cakes, prompting her to run even faster. Meanwhile, Ken takes Suzune and Ame to the house, where he asks Amako why she showed him that vision where everyone was offed by the Black Knight. She says she had no other choice because the heroes would have died, and this kingdom would be in ruins. She admits she has the power to see the future, and when she saw that vision for the first time, she left the Beastkin territory to look for a healer. She also says that her mom hasn't opened her eyes in a long time, and she needed to make sure Linger doesn't fall, so she can ask a healer to save her mom. Ken asks why she didn't ask Ururu or Orga, and she says it's because they can't fight. Suzune asks her why she didn't talk to Rose, but that one's pretty self-explanatory. That left her with only Ken. But Suzune believes he might not be able to go because he has another mission. Ken believes he will pass by the Beastkin territory on his journey, so he asks Amako to wait while he discusses this with Rose. Rose says having an Oracle of Time missing can cause a civil war within the Beastkin, so she leaves to inform the king and see if they can do something about Amako's mother. When Ken returns to Amako, she already knows what happened due to her abilities, so she thanks Ken for the help and leaves for the day. At night, the other members of the rescue team are eating like animals, but the Black Knight sits there regretting every choice that led her here. Ken joins her and gives her a journal, similar to how Rose gave him one on his first day, and this makes her blush. With that, she continued her training for the next few days, and Ken joined her one day to boost her morale, making her realize he's a raid boss. Days later, she heard loud thuds coming from the forest and skipped training to investigate, only to learn that they were coming from Rose punching Ken in the gut. Rose yells at Ken because he doesn't dodge his attacks, but Ken argues that she keeps changing her attacks every time. After screaming at each other, they go again, and Ken manages to dodge her for the first time, only to drop his guard and get punched again. Despite that, he cheers up because he's finally passed, and the Black Knight is terrified of how crazy he truly is. Later, as he rests with her, she tells him he's becoming a monster like Rose, which makes him smirk. He then asks her what her name is, and even though it's pretty late to ask, she shyly tells him it's Felm. Just then, Blurin shows up, and Ken gets distracted by him, making Felm upset because he didn't give any reaction to her telling him her name. In frustration, she runs off as fast as she can, only to collapse and sleep during the meal. That night, Felm sneaks through the halls and overhears Rose briefing Ken about his mission to deliver the king's letter. The next day, while she goes on an early run, Ken takes Amako to the throne room, where Lloyd bows to her and thanks her for saving their kingdom. He then tells Ken to head to the nation of Mailark to deliver the letter, and he's chosen this nation because it's close to the Beastkin territory. Afterward, Welsie gives him detailed information about his route, and he is to visit 3 nations to deliver the letters before going to the Beastkin territory to help Amako's mother. She also reveals that she and the other heroes will accompany him to his first destination, after which he will go alone with Amako and attending knights of his choosing. Ken chooses Iruku to be his first knight, and he humbly accepts the mission. Welsie then asks Ken about his second knight, and he points to his Labubu bear, Bluerin. Meanwhile, Felm is on the run, and Rose catches up to her and believes she was running to the demon territory to tell them about Ken's mission. However, she also sees that Felm had taken a different route, which means she was simply training. Felm then asks her why she's not worried about Ken going far away on his own, and Rose confidently says that it'll take an army even to scratch someone of Ken's caliber. She then asks Felm if she planned to follow Ken on his journey because she's obsessed with him, but Felm says no and that she's just sick of living such a hard life, prompting Rose to smack her cakes and declare that it's time to take her somewhere special. That evening, Ken tells Felm that he's leaving tomorrow and playfully asks if she's going to miss him. Hearing this, Felm gets annoyed because he gets to escape Rose's harsh training while she's stuck and starts kicking him. After she leaves, Rose appears and tells Ken that other nations look down upon healers, so if anyone tries to bully him, he has full permission to beat them to a pulp. She also acknowledges that this journey will change him a lot, so she tells him she expects great things from him before heading off. This makes Ken tear up again, but he wipes them off and admits that he is grateful to have someone as great as Rose having expectations from him. The next day, he meets Orga and Ururu, who wish him the best. Meanwhile, Kazuki and Suzune say goodbye to Celia, and together, they set out on this journey to meet new people. Meanwhile, Rose takes Felm to the peak overlooking the darkness of Linger to put her through the same test that Ken passed with flying colors. Ken is in his carriage and looks back to see them on the peak, but then he looks at his friends, excited to start this new adventure with them. That's it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and watch this video on screen.